Hi, I'm Mark Thorburn, and welcome back to Tuts Plus Introduction to Sony Vegas Pro. In this lesson, we'll look at the layout and how to get your footage into the software, plus some of the basic editing techniques.
So this is the standard layout for Sony Vegas Pro. As you can see, you have a trim window here, you've got your playback window here, you've got your project media or various other things like effects and things, depending on which tab you click down here, will appear on this side. Down here, the default setting starts with one visual track and one audio track. So let's start putting some media into the program. There are two ways that you can do this. You can either, from the project media tab here, hit that and then decide which media it is that you want to via that, or another way of doing it is simply to open up a folder and drag it in. So these are the images that we're going to be using. This is the footage that we're going to be using. So we'll start with number one, just drag it in and drop it right there. And then we'll get rid of that for now. And you can see there it is and it appears there. Now, what you can do, I tend to work off two screens. So my layout is different, but let's work off the standard layout. But you can move these windows around, etc., and customize the layout. But let's get rid of the trimmer window because that's not something that I tend to use that often. That gives us room to increase the playback window and also the project, the explorer, and also the effects and media generators windows. So there we go. We start with that, and that's how you import it. There it is. It plays back quite nicely. Not there's much movement in that film there. By the way, if you ever get the opportunity to visit Prague in the Czech Republic, I can highly recommend it. So that's how we import our media. You can either do it, as I say, by clicking there and importing it, or you can do it by simply dragging in from a folder window and putting it there. So let's import all of the media that we want to. And if we don't want to put it on the timeline, we don't want to drag it straight in there, then the easiest way to do it is via the import window here. So we find the right piece and then we'll put it in. And what you can do is simply select everything that's in there by dragging like that and open, and they will all then appear here in the project window. So these are all the things that we're going to need to put together in order to produce the little promo for Prague. And as you can see down here, they've all loaded up fairly quickly. So if we wanted to, down here in the timeline, as I say, the default position once you load something in is obviously one for visuals and one for audio. They are treated together. You move them around like that. Or if you click this button here, you can move them around separately like that. And what we're using here is none of the original audio. In fact, the files are blank, so we can just highlight it, hit delete, and that will disappear. So these are marked in the order that we're going to use them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we can quite happily, roughly, just load them in that order right now. So there we go. Everything is loaded in. What we can do, if we want to increase the amount of tracks that we have, drag that up first of all so we can have a look, is simply right-click, insert an audio track if we want to, or get rid of it by deleting it, or we can insert the video track. Simple as that. And you can move the order around any way that you want to have them. There you go, like that. So we'll get rid of that for now because we don't need it. And as mentioned before, the audio that we're using on this, none of it is the original audio. It is all blank, so we can get rid of that entire track. So all we have there is a visual track and everything is imported. Now, basic layout. So we've got the playback switches down here. So play there. Let's make that slightly larger again, just so that we can see it properly. You can move down the timeline like this, simply by clicking on the top. And we see everybody there. All very good and interesting. What else can we do? Well, trimming and crossfading, really, really simple. Just zoom in. Let's go to one with a bit of movement on. Let's go into the bridge here. If we wish to trim that, so it starts there, plays like that. But if we want to trim it, you just hold it there, hold down the left mouse button and trim it shorter, and vice versa. If you go past the original length, you'll end up with that small notch there that lets you know that you've gone past the original length. You can do that. I mean, for some looping sequences that can be quite useful, but that is the length as is. Now what we could do if we wanted to is to slow it down. So if we hit that there, move everything else along, what that button does is move everything along that's on the timeline. If you take that off, it'll just move the one thing, but we just want everything out of the way a little bit, so let's move it down, then take that off. If you zoom back in here, and if you press the control button whilst, you see that little wiggle comes underneath there, while you drag it, you'll see the wiggly line there, and what that is doing is slowing it down. So now our people are walking in slow motion. Obviously, depending on how many frames per second you filmed this, you've got to be careful, because if you do too much of it, then you'll end up with a juddering effect. And of course, the reverse, hit the control button, make it shorter than it was, and then all of a sudden people are going to be moving a lot quicker than they were. So that's control, and then the left mouse button to extend it any way that you want. So you can do that there. When it comes to crossfading, we'll go back to this one here. So say we wanted to put this over the top of that, you literally just drag it along like that, and you'll get a crossfade, and it'll look like this. Quite a nice smooth crossfade. And obviously by just changing the distance between the two, that's the speed of the crossfade there. Or of course, you can just straightforward cut by putting them against each other, and it becomes a cut like that. And those really are the basics for importing media and moving it around within your timeline in Sony Vegas Pro. Couldn't be simpler.
And there you have it, the basics to get you started in Sony Vegas Pro. In the next lesson, we'll look at getting the first pass together to create the flow and tone that we're looking for. I'm Mark Thorburn, thanks for watching.